Hey guys, just real quick, I just want to let you guys know you can find me at patreon.com/Jonathan Rector. All your financial support there goes directly back into making more content for you guys and you ladies out there. And remember, you can always cancel your subscription at any time. And if you are one of my Patreons, thank you so much. Your help gets me closer to making my personal comics and my dreams come to life. Seriously though, head on over there if you guys are interested. And anybody that gives any money at all, if it is something that you're interested in, you do get access to my pencil brushes that I use in Manga Studio 5EX for free. And there's 5 of those guys. So subscribe today if you're interested in it. Share if you're not. Maybe one of your friends might be interested in it. I appreciate all of it. Thank you again, and enjoy the video. Bye. We are now on to the inks, finally. This is sort of the stage here where, for me anyway, there's a lot of just a calmness. I know I'm going to be sitting down to do a lot of work, and it's going to be time intensive, but there's not too much thought in it. It's mostly just clearing up the pencil stages. And if you wanted to check out, there's the 2 videos previous to this, the how we got here, in case you'd missed those, and I'll include them in the top as well. You can check out, or you can check the comment bar below, or the about bar, of the thumbnails. Then we got the feedback from the client, and then we went right into the pencils, which you can see that I've turned to blue in this file. And now we're just throwing inks over top. And in this cover, for some reason, I'm not quite sure, it's funny, because with a lot of projects, I get different feels, I get a different feeling from individual projects, and this one just led itself, especially maybe because it's the demon kind of character that I started with, because he seemed like the coolest, fun thing to draw. And I wanted to make sure that I got him done first, because like I just said, it's a lot of time, and I always like doing the coolest stuff first. I don't necessarily like saving things because you got to get to it. So I'd rather just eat the cake first and then enjoy the rest of the meal, so to speak. But the rendering you can see in here there's a lot of rendering going on here. There's a lot of different style of rendering too. It's not just a traditional kind of rendering that I would do. This is sort of a mix of I like to call it like a Jim Lee style rendering, where you break up a black shape with just like these scratchy lines, and you can see a lot of that coming around the eye of this creature and stuff. But on other places it's just solid black with some, I guess, traditional normal inking, I guess. But this video actually this was quite a while. I believe this whole thing took about 6 hours to ink. And I enjoyed it. It's refreshing, because a lot of the things that I'm doing on the side or otherwise, there's not much rendering, because rendering takes a lot of time, and I'd rather just spend most of my time telling cool stories. But sometimes, it's really fun to just sit down and ink. And I decided I was going to do that with this one. I felt it was a little bit more appropriate for this project as well. One thing I wanted to point out as well, I'm not even sure if you guys will see it on the screen or when I zoom in if you can see it, but when I was filling in the blacks with the paint bucket tool, there was still this white halo around everything, but it was very thin. And you can't really see it right now, but like I say, if we zoom in, you can kind of see it, and it's gross. Like you can see it. So what I had done was I had printed it out on 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, which is pretty similar in size to a normal comic book once it's printed. And the reason I did that was just to see if you could even see those halos. And I remember reading from Freddie E. Williams, he would say you don't need to worry about them. They're just, when you print it, they're going to get shrunk so much that it's going to get filled with black anyway. And, I just sort of took that wisdom and was like, I hope it's right. I trust them. He hasn't led me astray yet. So I kept drawing, and then when I printed it, it was kind of towards the end, and I'm like, if it doesn't work, I got to go back in and just kind of redraw over those halos, which sucks, it's like monotonous work. But I printed it out, and, it was true. All those halos were gone. And then I, once it's even colored as well, like it's not even noticeable. So I just wanted to let you guys know that too, that if you see the halo on your stuff, depending on how much you're going to shrink it down or at what resolution you're showing it online and stuff, you don't even really need to worry about it. It's sort of like, because you're so zoomed in, you notice the imperfections, and the imperfections aren't small when you're zoomed in, right? They're big, and you want to address those as soon as you possibly can. The inking that I'm doing here as well, I kind of think of it, if I can relate it to you guys, so you guys can try it out in case you like the lines or something that I'm getting there. Imagine just having like a pencil in your hand and draw just a straight line on a piece of paper right now if you got it near you, from the top to the bottom of the page. And what I normally like to do when I'm inking this stuff is I don't like to just go like maybe start light and then press heavy towards the bottom. I kind of do that for rendering. What I do though is when I'm making a straight line, I'll kind of vary the speed up that I'm doing it at, as well as just every now and then just applying pressure. So you get like these thick chunky lines, thin lines, chunky lines. It just makes the lines look a little interesting. And it especially works with like characters like this that are a little bit more gnarled up, kind of villainesque or just kind of grungy look. I do it as well with everything else that's on here, the other characters that are in the background as well. But try it around. You might enjoy the results that you get from something like that. In here, I was just doing the initial rendering, but I didn't want to grab a bigger brush. I wanted to keep it all the same size. So after I did the rendering, I just redrew over the rendering that I had, just to thicken up the lines a little bit. And then here we're just throwing some white in there as well. I should say that this has been sent to the client as well, and the editor, and they both gave it thumbs up, which is great to hear. I don't think anybody ever, and I said it in the pencil too, once you send something away to get approved, I think the last thing you ever want is to get it back saying, could you change this, this, and that. It's like, everybody knows it's a work in progress. Everything should be available for scrutiny, and if it makes it a better piece overall, it's good. It's good for the project and the team, right? But it still sucks to have to do extra work when you finally spend all day or how long it takes you to do something. You send it, you're like, whew, done. Now tomorrow I get to start on a fresh new thing, and you check your email or something, and it's like, hey, so and so, we just need you to fix this and that, and you're like, oh, but I got, it's just not a, it's not a, I don't want to say it's not a good feeling. It's just not a rewarding feeling. Not like you let yourself down or something that you did was wrong. Just that it was, I'm still not done it, even though I gave myself that that mental talk when I sent it off, like, yay, I'm finally done. And I can move on to the next thing. And here, just working on the hand, I wasn't really feeling it too much there. Some of the stuff was a little gross, and you can see that pressure that I'm doing, and this is actually sped up like 999%. So you guys can't see me actually drawing the lines in; they just sort of like appear. But you can see how gnarled those lines are, and that's just doing what I had just told you, where you just kind of alternate pressure sensitivity, and it takes some work. And the faster you make your lines, the better I see that it looks. And it tends to get a little bit more less gross looking. And here I'm just painting back over with some white just to help break up the backs. Like I just drew underneath the jaw there because I wanted the head to pop. The head's clearly what I'm trying to make the focus, so it has the most detail in it, even including these guys. The cat's wings there, they get sort of detailed. There's some heavier blacks that get in there, but for the most part, it's I want that demon, that face to be the focus. So I put a lot of time doing the detail in there. And the other method that I'm doing here as well is more of an inking. I like to call it an inking tool. If I was just doing pencils and I was sending this to somebody else, my pencils would be tighter. But in saying that, I know I'm inking it, but you can see I'm still kind of outlining where I had the idea of where the shadow should be. So what I'm doing to do this effect, and why I'm doing it, just so you guys can understand the principle behind it, is it makes inking faster, in my opinion. I am a big believer in having some solid line work down and structure, and then going over and adding where your light or your what's it called there? Your line weights, beefing them up as opposed to where the light source is, and then going back and adding some shadow and doing your rendering and stuff. But there's something to be said about as you draw, you build on what you're drawing, and that's sort of what's going on here. So you can see like I'm drawing the arm, and I'm already carving out where the shadows are that I put with the pencil very lightly. Like, look at that arm there. It's very lightly following the lighting structure that I had already established with the pencils. And that's the whole point of the pencils, is so that it's easier, in my opinion, to just throw down some pencils because they're not a solid line. It's shading, right? And I can build volume that way much quicker, and that way when I get to the inking, I have an idea, like I keep saying, of where I wanted my shadows to be, so that as I'm drawing it, I can carve those shapes out, or I can build them up, I can add more rendering. So you can see right here, like, I have a cast shadow of this guy's arm, his left arm. And I'm just going to go in and draw with white, just like that, just to break it up a bit. But you can see, like, even here, I'm going in and adding shadow. That wasn't there in the pencils, but the lighting is still the same. right? So you'll see, like, if we use this as an example, this character here, you'll see his nose is heavily in shadow, and I just carve it out, but I'm using that to help build the shape around it. So I know he's got his eyes there, and I'm, turning the pencils off so I can kind of see what's going on. And because of where my pencils are, it just helps me make less decisions when we get to the inking, because for me the inking is like the last line. You can always erase things, undo things. You can always, it's digital, so the steps, there's always a bunch of steps that you're able to do, which is great, which is very fortunate, and it's a great thing to do. But what it also lets you do is that you can noodle a lot, and I find when I spend just a little extra time doing the pencils, my inking is less brain work, as it is just turn the music on and just kind of ink. There's not much thought that needs to go into it. And I said it a bunch of times that thumbnails for me are the most thought intensive process of the entire process, or the most important stage, I should say, out of the process. Second is the pencils, because that's when I worry about the anatomy. Okay, that's when I worry about making sure that, at least the best ability that I can do, that things are foreshortened correctly, or they have a certain feel or a life to them that I don't want to lose, and that's the point of it. So the thumbnails, they're going to get like that concept, that idea that, okay, I can see where we're going from here. Let's ride this out. So that when we go into the pencils, I can then adjust it, going, I see where I was going. Now let's just make it shine. So the work that I'm putting in there makes it so that the inking is just detail work. And I know that might sound a little, well, detail work is hard. It is. Every stage is very difficult. But I'm sure, and I'm hoping, most of you guys and girls, when you guys have your process of however you like to work, there's at least one stage that's maybe your favorite, or a stage that you just seem to just cruise through. And I find that a lot of artists, it's inking, whether you're inking with a real pen, or if you're just doing digital inking. It's just, I don't know, there's something to it. And the more that I'm doing this, the more comfortable I'm getting with it, and the lines are getting, much better. When I ink traditionally, like when you guys don't really see it, I do it on the side some nights when I'm just kind of figuring out some characters and stuff. But as I'm drawing with the inking, my inking doesn't look like this at all. And I find it funny because my skills in digital are starting to surpass my traditional skills. So when I sit down with a pencil, I get a different look than how my digital work looks. And I was actually just looking at a couple commissions that I had sent out to some people that purchased some, that I had scanned, and I was just looking through them, and I was comparing them to like even this piece and some other comic book work that I'm doing, The World's in Peril, that kind of stuff. And I'm looking, and I don't want to say it looks like two different artists, because that's up to you guys and you ladies out there. When you look at my stuff, you guys might be able to see a difference. So it might all look the same, but I feel like it has a different vibe to it, a different look to it. And the more I keep going digital, the more I enjoy it more. I enjoy just sitting down and doing this, as opposed to like getting the old sketchbook and stuff. Which is an interesting thought. I just wanted to put it out there because I'm not sure. You guys let me know in the comments. For all of you guys that are switching to digital, or mostly digital now, do you find that as well? That at the beginning, I'm assuming anyway, that your work was kind of like why even do this? Why? And then if you did keep up with it, let me know that as well. Or if you left it, I'd like to know that as well. But the people that stuck with it, do you find that the more you stuck with it, the better it looked? And I mean, obviously that sounds like that's what should happen, but did you start to enjoy it more? Did you start to like the results you were getting more? And just a quick thing here for the wings, what I had done is I used a different brush for these guys. I was looking for a textured brush, something that can just help, when we get like these big shadow lines like here that you can see on the right. I want there to be a texture there, just so that it's different than a nice clean line. It's sort of like if I was to draw like Beast or somebody that had a lot of hair, I would use something like this. And I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time making a custom brush or looking for something or messing with settings. So just looking at the default brushes, and I went right to like the, what is it? The traditional ink or the India ink setting, and there's nothing really there. Usually there's like a dry brush or something, and I just didn't feel it. But under the pen settings, there was a textured one, and it just, I don't know, it felt good. It felt real good. So when I started throwing in the shadows here, it was just, it was a good feeling. It was a good way to wrap this up. And you can kind of see it right now when we get in there. It looks like it's on paper, to me anyway. And I just really love the effect there. It helped bring this guy to life. And there's a lot of shadow work in there, so I'm going to have to be careful once we get into the coloring. Just so I can definitely make him pop over those wings, because his arms in the inks, they do start to blend a little bit in there. And I just wanted to sort of wrap this up with what the next video will be. It's going to be a coloring video. However, during the live stream this week, actually, some of the people were asking, I have people asking me all the time about doing coloring tutorials and all that. So what I'm going to do is, instead of coloring the entire cover with you guys, I'm probably just going to color the demon, just because he's got a lot more interest, and there's more that can go on there. He is like only one color, so there is that. But so what I'm going to do is do all the flatting and all that stuff, so that when we jump into it, I can just quickly talk about the flatting and then just go into like where I would go from there. So how I establish light and all that stuff, and what tools I'm using. And so you guys can look forward to that if you're interested. That's actually in Photoshop. I still don't feel comfortable doing this sort of like my airbrush sort of coloring in Manga Studio just yet. But I'm sure in time we'll kind of just keep it all in-house here. But there's still editing tools and stuff that are in Photoshop that I just can't seem to find in Manga Studio. And the more you work on a specific piece of software, the more you're just in it, and you just want to keep working in that program. But this cover's coming along. I'm actually really what's the word I want to look for? I feel like this cover turned out really well. Considering I wanted cover A from the thumbnails to be the one that we would have done. The demon turned out really well. Getting back into this rendered inking style and stuff just felt kind of like, it felt familiar. And I haven't really been in this mindset for drawing or inking in a while. So it was just a little refreshing to get in there. But it looks like the video is about to wrap up. I want to say thanks once again to all of my Patreon subscribers. You guys are the best. And everybody else that's watching on YouTube and otherwise. Keep reading comics, keep making comics, and I'll see you next time.